Hey, welcome back to our shop. Thank you for joining us. If you watched our last video, we had leaking going on right here in this area of the tractor, leaving puddles, and we saw it was leaking out of the 3-point hitch, the flow speed control valve, and all it was a little O-ring on a spool that was worn out. So we fixed that. That was great, but unfortunately it didn't do it all. Now we find the transmission's leaking. I'll show you that in a minute, and we're getting ready to pull it out. But more important than the leaks is this little bolt. This $3 bolt could save you thousands of dollars in labor. So make sure you watch this, and I'll explain what I'm talking about. But now we have multiple leaks on the transmission. If you look back on last episode, so the first leak we have is down at that input shaft. Get in there. Yeah, so that's leaking there. So on its own, that would be a pretty easy fix. I would just undo those 2 bolts and that would come off and I could put a new seal in it. But that's not the only leak. But if you look over here, we have a lot more oil coming off there. And I took this off. So that's the 4-wheel drive shaft, and that's not leaking. So where it is leaking is right here at the seam. You can see it just running down there. So today we're going to take all that apart. So at the end of the last episode, we had started draining this. We're almost done. Shouldn't be much left in there, but the less it's in there, the less pressure. So it's getting slower and slower. But there's about 5 gallons in there, and we've got about 3 so far. So we still got a couple gallons to go. So might as well start working on some of the other stuff. So while that finishes draining, let's disconnect the neutral switch here. Get that out of the way. The switch is going to come off with it. And then we got this is the suction line. I don't know how tight that's going to be, so I got a little extra here. That wasn't too bad. Oh, there we go. Let me grab a screwdriver here, and I'll loosen this off, and then we'll be able to rotate that line, give us a little bit more clearance. Hey, let's see if we have a bit more room to turn that now. Maybe not. Might be easy to just take it right off, I think. I don't know. There, after a little bit of arguing, I just pulled it right out of the way now. Okay, and this line's going to have to come out. I guess I should have put a drain pan on there. I got a mess to clean up. So I didn't think there'd be that much oil in here, but I was wrong. So now I got a nice big drain pan under there. I have to get this out of the way. And the transmission is going to have to come out forward and drop. So get this out. Take the dry shaft off. Hopefully that's high enough. That should be high enough. And you have power steering line here. Fifteen sixteenths. So this one was 13 sixteenths, and this one's 15 sixteenths. And there's one more down there. It'll be the same as this. It's all going to get new O-rings when we put it back together. That one, a little bit of leak again. And now we have access. We can undo these bolts for this spline. 17. Let's see if that'll come off without turning the other end. I kind of doubt it. Oh, it is. No, it's turning. I have a 16 and a 17. 16 it is. So I don't know how am I going to get at that. Shouldn't have to take it right off, just loosen, I figure. See if I can turn that around. Hopefully that's enough, it'll slide. Now we have to take the flex coupling off at the other end. Clean up my tools. So this here, that's where the input shaft comes from. That's right from, basically a drive shaft right from the motor. And you have to undo the 3 bolts there, and you should be able to take that right out. One. Two. I might have to turn that a little bit. How's that? Yeah, that should get it. Yeah. I think that should be all it takes. I don't think you have to undo all 6. Nope. There we go. Now. Maybe, oh, there we go. Perfect. So as I showed you before, I already got this loosened off and out of the way. And there's another one at this end. Take the 2 hose clamps out. And just have to line it up. Just line up the shaft. There's one of these in the shaft there. That's all that holds it on. Just use a drift and drive it out. Once the pin's out of the way, it just slides off. There. Okay. So the next thing to come off is the transmission filter. Put the wrench on the right way. It's that much less oil in the transmission to wear when it comes out. There. Get that out of the way. Now that last transmission line there, of course that's bigger. Back to the 15. So this is the other line that goes to the power steering. There. Okay. Now we have to take this linkage off. And there'll be one bolt inside there we have to take off. Right there. Now you don't want to change the position of that nut, because this is what adjusts your pressure on your neutral switch. So I'm hoping to not have to do any adjustments afterwards, but I probably will. But I'm trying. And screwdriver. Spring comes out. Maybe not. That doesn't like the last couple of threads. Let's see if we can get the spring out anyways. There. Let that hang. That stays there. And all there is the other end of this arm up in there. Let's see if I can get that in there. Okay, so I have to undo that bolt right there. That's the only part of the linkage we have to undo. It's on both sides. I don't know if I can show you, but we'll definitely try. Okay, 13 on both sides. For now, see if there's any bushings or anything in here. Don't want to lose those. My nut. There is a bushing up there. I'm going to put the nut right back on there. It stays long enough for me to put the nut back on. There. That's it. So all it takes now is a bolt there and a bolt on the other side, and that should come out. So we got that bolt undone. And there's another one right there. So they're both loose. So now I got to put a sling on this thing. All right, so I got my little block and tackle set up here. And I've got the two bolts out of there. So basically that should be everything. This thing's not really that heavy. Maybe, I don't think it's 80, 100 pounds. So this is good for 500 pounds, so this should be fine. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna tighten that up a little bit. All these hoses in the way. There. Well, it's out, but it wasn't easy. Every single line and little square edge and shaft caught on everything. We had to wiggle it this way and twist it that way. Finally, we got it dropped down, and here it is right here. So this is what's causing our leak. See that O-ring there? All hard, and this one here is really flat. So I'm thinking that both of them are probably leaking. But while we're here, we'll clean it up. And of course, we have to change the input shaft seal. So we'll change that, change a bunch of O-rings. And once I got it cleaned up, we really got to talk about this thing. Hey, so we got the transmission all out, washed it all off, got most of the grease and guck out of it. So let me bring you in and see what we're going to do to seal it up. Okay, so we pulled those two O-rings out of there. Those two, we got two new ones there. The big one there, that's here. So we got all new O-rings there. And we wanted to get that seal out of there. You could take this off and maybe push the seal and the bearing out from the other side, but pretty easy. You know, if you're not squeamish, just drill a little hole in it, put a sheet metal screw in there, and you just pry it out with a screwdriver. I had to do both sides. It came out real easy. And I got a new one right here. There's the part number, and you guys need it. So I'm going to put this in right now. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on it, and then we'll push it in. I just happen to have a 7/8 locking collar, and it fits perfectly on there, and it fits right in there quite nicely. And around. And as soon as I find my socket, oh, there it is. I've got a 1 1/16 socket there. And that fits in here just nice. There we go. That's it, we're in. So I'm not going to put these O-rings in until we get it in place. I didn't want to damage the threads. I've already scored the threads over here a little bit, pulling it out. So that part's sealed up. So let's turn it around. And we got a couple sealed here. We got that one there, that one there. Those are the ones I suspected were leaking. So I'm going to pull this little O-ring out of here. Now I probably damaged it getting it out. And I don't think you can see, but inside it's all kinds of little bumps and holes, and that's probably one of the reasons why it was leaking. And this one here, I think is just flat. Being in there so long. And it might be the same. Oh yeah, look at that. Just starting to fall apart. So we got a couple new ones there. Here's the part numbers, just in case you need them. But before I put those on, here's the single most important thing you're going to do today, and it has nothing to do with the seals. This here is that shaft, the output shaft. This is out of my other tractor. I have a 755, exactly the same transmission if you have any of these 55 series tractors. And what happens is that bolt breaks off. And what you end up with is this bolt falls in the differential. So you have this thing rolling around in there. And this falls in there also. And what ends up happening is that gear just slides back and forth on there. And what will happen is you'll be able to drive forward fine. You won't be able to back up. As you back up, the gear will slide out, and you can see where this one is rubbed. And it would rub against there. And it won't go in the gear. You put it forward again, and it'll slide back into place. But you take a chance of that bolt getting jammed up in there. And let me show you what it takes to get that. That head of the bolt, when it comes off, it drops in there. And it drops down inside here. And the only way to get that apart is by taking all these bolts out. Is to take all these bolts out, but you can't get that out while it's in the tractor. So you basically have to pull the whole differential, this whole back part of the tractor, out. Well, to me, it looks just like a regular grade 8 bolt, but it had some special note on it in the John Deere parts diagram, and it comes with some thread locker. I'm going to put a little extra on it. But I don't want this to happen again, and you don't. This little $3 bolt could save you thousands of dollars in labor. So if you don't want to have to be pulling this thing out again, if you do have it out for any reason, for sealing or for whatever, do yourself a favor, and for $3, change that bolt. All right, so changing that bolt is definitely going to help. But it's not going to guarantee that it won't ever happen. All you've really done is reset the clock on this wearing out, breaking. But there is another option, and this is why I have the shaft here out of my 755, and I'll show you here on these diagrams what I mean. John Deere knew they had a problem with these transmissions, and this is the shaft, again, out of my 755, the same one that's in this 855, and that's one right there. And you can see it has the bolt and the washer at the end. Well, they produced that same model until 94, and then 94 they came out with this one, which is a different shaft. Instead of having a 3/8 hole threaded in the end, they extended the shaft and they made it 5/8 and they threaded it. And over there, they put a castellated nut and a cotter pin, and it won't break again. It's much stronger. So that is an option. I replaced this out of my 755 because the head broke. I had to take the whole tractor apart just to get this out. I didn't want it to happen again. I used the tractor a lot, backing up, back and forth, cutting grass. I just didn't want to go through it again. So I bought the updated shaft. There's the part number. Now, at the time, this was about $200. That was at least 10 years ago. But again, I didn't want to have to do it again. And if you're paying labor to have this job done, it would cost thousands. I just priced this. This is $500 now. I would have changed it if it was maybe $300, but I won't change it at $500. I personally don't think I'll use this enough in that fashion to break this again. But again, I'm just spinning the roulette wheel. It could happen. I hope it doesn't. So this is just another option. But again, if you're paying labor to do this, it'd be well worth it. I just heated this up with a propane torch, and it came off pretty easy. Now, I don't know if this has been off before or whatever, but there's some red thread locker in there. So who knows how many cycles this has had. So I'm not going to trust this. For $3, you're way better off just to replace it. Like I said, see that gear just slides on and off. And if that bolt falls out, the gear just slides out of connections and slides back again. Okay, the shop manual calls for medium strength thread rocker, and it looks like there's already some on it, so I added some more. I blew the threads out really good with brake cleaner and some air. There, 40 pounds. That's what it calls for. Okay, these are the O-rings that go where I suspected was the leak. So this here, I used a wire wheel, brushed it all up. A bit of oil. Definitely feels a lot thicker. Well, this looks like it's too big. Well, maybe not. That's the way it goes in. There. All right. It's ready to go back in. So I've got the transmission on the floor jack, and I've got this here tied. So this part, the spring purchase is at the bottom. So now that won't get in the way. So we just have to gradually try to lift it. I've got these tied out of the way and try to lift it, see if we clear everything. I know it won't be easy. Have to clear that four-wheel drive shaft. Okay, I struggled with this a bit, trying to get it in. And the main problem was the shaft for the four-wheel drive. Kept getting in the way. This goes over here. And so I just finally unbolted it. And all it is going to be a $5 gasket to replace that. So I got to wait for that to come in. So anyways, after that was out of the way, with the little, my little block and tackle on the floor jack, it went in not bad. A little bit of a struggle getting in on this spline, just like any standard transmission, basically. I got the 2 bolts in, the main bolts, they're torqued to 105. And the transmission cooling lines right there. Got new O-rings on there, they're all in. Get you zoomed in here. So that springs back on again, back to adjustment. And that 1 bolt in there is back on. So that's all back together. I'm waiting for that gasket to come in. I got to clean that up, and then we'll finish putting it together. So I've got a new gasket on here. I got it all cleaned up. Got a little bit of gasket shellac to hold this in place. And I've got that all cleaned up. So now I'm going to put this back together. Hope we can get it to line up. There we go. There. Took a little bit of wiggling, but so the gears meshed up. So before I get too carried away tightening this, I'm going to put the linkage on and just operate it. Right now it's in two-wheel drive mode. Now it's in four-wheel drive mode. Back in two-wheel. Perfect. Now we can finish tightening it up. All right, now we can start putting the other things on. So while this is on the ground, really easy to get to, put a couple shots of grease in it. There we go. Okay, let's start with the four-wheel shaft. And it goes on basically the same way it came off. That end slides on. Pretty straightforward. Just get on the spline. Just make sure it's in neutral so it spins. There's a little bit better light now. There's a hole lined up. There's a hole in this. There. Let's see. I think I got it. Get my drift. A lot easier when there's not a camera in the way. There you go. So that's it. All I gotta do is put that pin in, and it's gonna be a lot easier without this camera in the way. There's that drift. That spring pin's in there, and it's plus on both sides. Slide the boots back on, make them even both sides, and tighten up the clamps. That's it for that, and then we'll do the main shaft. So I cut the other end of the spline on there on the transmission. and I greased it before I put it on. So it's just a matter of lining up these bolts. So that drive shaft's all hooked up. Both ends, all the rubber collars are back on there again. Transmission filter's in, and the transmission lines are hooked up again. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. All right, let's head up top. Like I said, that drive shaft's tightened up. I've got that fitting back together and that fitting back together. Those are the two O-rings that I had to put in there. This is plugged back up. So I still have to tighten this up. But first I want to check the hydraulic filter. So this goes in here. I've already cleaned it. I washed it out in diesel fuel. You can use mineral spirits, whatever. And so since you've already got all the oil out, it's perfect time to clean this. And it just goes up in here. And then we'll start filling it. Okay, so it's all back together. All the floor plates are on. Got the fender back on. She's all filled up with fluid. And I've got the blade back on. And we got a bit of snow out there. So let's go try it out and see if it wets itself again. To be honest, there really wasn't enough snow to do out there, but it was just an excuse to try out my repair. So I did about 4 of the neighbors' driveways. I was out for maybe an hour. So we'll let this thing dry up overnight and we'll check it out. Hopefully we got no leaks. Well, look, Ma, no leaks. I've used it for a good hour or so, pushing snow around, and there's not a drop on the ground. Everything's nice and dry there. So it really makes me happy. Well, I figured I'd finish this video off before it started leaking again. Right now, there's no leaks, but that probably won't last. This little critter will obviously find another spot to wet itself. In my last video, I mentioned about pulling the transmission out, and one of my viewers, Glenn, he stated that I'd be on the struggle bus for doing this, and he was right. I did ride the struggle bus for a while, mostly just getting the transmission out. And if I would have just gone with my gut and pulled that 4-wheel drive, the output shaft adapter out right away, it would have been a lot easier. For the amount of time it took that off and a $5 gasket, it just made everything so much easier. I would have got the transmission out a lot easier. It went back in way easy. So that was really good. But anyways, getting back to this, we got the leaks fixed. They were a minor issue, but I'm glad I got it done. But the main thing was I wanted to get that bolt done. So it was $3. It was nothing. I've experienced where I've had to pull the whole tractor apart to get that head of the bolt out, and that's not much fun. And like I stated, if you had to pay that, it's probably be 8 or 10 hours of labor to take it all apart, plus your gaskets and stuff. So you'd be into it for a lot of money. When I went back to the dealer to get that little gasket for that output shaft, they looked up on their records, and it was 10 years ago. It was 2014 I bought that other shaft. And at the time, it was only $135.50. Right now, to buy it, it's $503 Canadian. So $309, $310 I've seen it on Amazon for you guys in the US. So if it would have been around $300 here, which I kind of figured it might be, I probably would have done it, and I should have, because changing that bolt hasn't fixed it. All I've done is reset the clock on it. The only way to truly fix it is to change that shaft. It's a little bit more work, but I think it's worth it in the long run. But at $500, it's just not worth it for me, and I don't think I'll put this much use into that. And to be honest, it's 70 years old. So today, it's cold and windy out. I'm not actually going to work on anything. To be honest, I'm getting kind of tired of fixing leaks on this, but I'm sure it'll find a way to do it. So while it's leak free, I thought we'd try something a little different next time. Maybe not fixed up. I've got 2 of these critters, this 855 and a 755. I think I'd like to do just a comparison. They both have loaders, so maybe we could do a nice little comparison. You guys put it down in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. And thank you very much for watching today. I really appreciate it. and we'll catch you next time.